Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us on another session of how to enhance your current Microsoft environment with Micetro. So, let's talk a little bit about proactive alerting and troubleshooting for Microsoft, right? If you're running a Microsoft shop, then these screenshots probably look pretty familiar to you. Microsoft DNS and DHCP tend to just work, right? Like once you have it set up and you've gone through the MMC snap-ins and all of that, it does just tend to work until it doesn't, or until you have to change something. And when it doesn't work, you are likely finding this out from the person who needs to use the affected device, right? And we would consider this reactive. If you're finding out something's wrong from your end user, you're already in a place you don't want to be. So let's take a look at a few ways we can prevent issues, do some easy troubleshooting using Maestro again to enhance your Microsoft environment without having to rip and replace or forklift anything. So we'll jump right into our demo. And here I have opened the Maestro Management Console. This is actually going away very soon. There are just a few things that you can only do in the Management Console that you can't actually do in the Web UI. But very soon, wink, wink, we will have full parity in the Web UI. So let's start over here with tools and then we'll go to maintenance. And here we see a few options. First, I'm going to click on find orphan pointer records and we can click start and very easily find pointer records that no longer have a corresponding DNSA record, right? So we can choose to delete these right here should we like. Now we can do a similar thing finding concurrent DHCP leases. These are DHCP leases that there are multiple that are active for the same MAC address. So obviously that can be problematic. So we'll go ahead and remediate that here if we do find any. So just some easy ways to kind of clean up your environment, make sure your users are happy. Now, sticking with tools, but going to system settings this time, let's talk a little bit more about IP conflict. And you see at the bottom of the screen here, we see determine address in use section. So we really want Maestro to kind of help you in your environment rather than you having to change your environment for Maestro. So these are optional, right? If you are trying to assign an IP address to a new device, but that IP address already has a DNSA record attached to it, then we can consider that a conflict. Now you can uncheck that if that's not the case for your environment. Maybe you want to allow that. Now, also, if you have a custom property set for the IP address already, so in Maestro, we have the ability to create and then populate custom properties, often containing identification information such as location or owner, or all sorts of things that you could identify an IP address with. If any of these are populated, maybe we don't want to go ahead and assign the IP address to another device. Now, of course, Maestro has states for each IP address, and if the IP address has been claimed, so it's not necessarily in use, but it has been claimed, then maybe we don't want to assign that IP address to a different device. And then, of course, if the IP address has been seen on the network in the last X amount of days, we have one listed here, then let's not go ahead and assign that IP address. So you know what they say, like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and that's what we're doing right here. Now, also in the system settings, we can do some logging configuration, same with error checking, all sorts of things, and then monitoring where we want notifications to be sent, right? Are we going to use mail, SMTP, right? Or are we going to use SNMP traps? Are we already using SNMP in our environment? So all sorts of ways to be notified of things happening in your environment. Let's get out of that for a second and talk a little bit about error checking. You see at the bottom here, we have some red boxes and some green. Obviously, red means things may not be going as planned. So we'll double click on that and then click directly on this box here and see what's happening in this errors and warnings window. Now I can easily see what's going on in my environment, and this is according to the configurations that I've set for error checking, right, and logging. So I can easily, again, kind of remediate these issues. I can cut out the noise by kind of cutting out warnings and only checking, the errors. This is just a lot easier to parse through than that event viewer. Also, it's centralized, right? So I can see this information for my entire DDI environment, whether it's on premises, whether it's in the public cloud, whether there are multiple servers, multiple Microsoft DNS and DHCP servers at different sites. I see it all right here in the same window. Okay, let's get out of errors and warnings for a second and look right here in my IP address ranges. I showed you earlier a little bit about setting subnet monitoring, but let's take a deeper look at what that means. So I just right-clicked on an IP range and I'm going to select Set Subnet Monitoring. If I want to enable it, obviously I put a check there, and then I can specify a script to be run should any of these thresholds be met. So I can automatically remediate any issues that might appear, especially in the case of meeting these thresholds. Now, on the subject of utilization, let's go ahead and jump into the web UI now. Let me make that full screen for everyone. If I jump into my IPAM tab, I immediately see utilization information for my IP ranges, for my DHCP scopes. Now, over here on the left-hand side, I get kind of quick filters, right? And I can click on highly utilized. What is a highly utilized? And I think we have it set to 80%, but it is configurable, so you can set it to whatever you like. But we have one range that is highly utilized, right? Now I can segment this even more as well. If I go into the folders area, I have folders and smart folders here. So smart folders are configurable with regex expressions. And you can see I've just said, hey, I want all of the /24s with over 50% utilization to go into this folder automatically. So it is dynamic, right? And now I can see this all of these ranges, all of these scopes. Now I can see all of these networks are in here. Now we can see all of these networks have over 50% utilization. They are all /24s. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, right? If I wanted to do it by location, by owner, really by any sort of segmentation that you want to do. And then, it doesn't just have to be utilization either. It can be all sorts of ways to kind of easily organize and get real-time information. So I could do this running a report as well and hand that off to my compliance auditor or to my boss, but that report is probably going to be wrong tomorrow or the next day. So this is real-time information right here that I can see anytime I want and do some proactive remediation. Now, the other thing I can do is let's just stay right here. If I click on one of these networks, I can see whether monitoring is turned on right here in the web UI. And then let's double click on the same network and pick an IP address. Now here I actually get related DNS data. This is really helpful when I'm trying to understand what's going on in the network, contextualize things. You obviously don't get this with Microsoft native services. Being able to see all of the related information is only going to help me in my troubleshooting. I can also do things like make changes directly here or go ahead and reveal and go over to the DNS tab and it takes me directly where I want to go. Now, the other thing I want to show is if I click back on this menu button, I mentioned earlier that often when things go wrong in your network, it's because something was either recently created or recently modified. And look here, we have those quick filters built in for you. We have them in DNS as well, as you can see, recently created, recently modified. And then to make things even easier for troubleshooting, I can just go to this meatball menu and click on View History. And now I can see everything that's happened to this particular DNS zone, or really any object within the entirety of your DDI environment, right? Because any object has a history and we are able to find it. I don't have to log into several different servers or services. Things are not a black box from the cloud. I can see whether changes have been made maybe automatically or from a particular user, who, what, when, where, and even the why if there's a comment. So you can see, and again, it's all from a centralized location. That's all I have for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.